dear students, welcome to the class of biology, and today I am going to teach you biological classifications. With the dawn of civilization, there has been many attempts which have been taken for these classification systems. People in earlier days used to classify organisms based on their uses, whether it is used in their food, shelter and clothing. The system of classification started by Aristotle. Aristotle, you have remembered, he was the father of biology, right? And he also described the plants on the basis of whether the plants are herb, shrub and trees. And he grouped animals into the presence of the one which are having red blood cells and the one which do not have red blood cells. There was another scientist called as Linnaeus, that is Carolus Linnaeus. He was the one to give two kingdom classification systems. These two kingdom classification systems was the Plantae and the Animalia. Plantae kingdom includes all the different kinds of plants and Animalia includes all the different kinds of animals. These classification systems have certain disadvantage. The first one is whether the organisms are prokaryote or eukaryotic. He has not described that. Next is whether the organism is unicellular or multicellular. And the last thing is whether they are photosynthetic or non-photosynthetic. Photosynthetic they have included in green alga and non-photosynthetic they have included in fungi. So, there we have got that this Carolus Linnaeus have disadvantage in his kingdom of classifications. In this system of classifications, he have not included so many things, right? So, the first thing, next scientist was Ernst Haeckel. Ernst Haeckel was the one who given another kingdom, that is Protista. In this Protista, he included unicellular eukaryotic organisms. And the next one is Copeland. He was the one who given four kingdom classification systems, and in this four kingdom classification systems, it was included Plantae, Animalia and Monera. He included Monera also. So, this Monera included the prokaryotic organisms. So, what we have got in this, the first one was done by Carolus Linnaeus. He given two kingdom system of classification, that is Plantae and Animalia. After that, Ernst Haeckel who given three kingdom classification system including Plantae, Animalia and Protista, and the next one, that is the Copeland who given four kingdom classification systems, that is Animalia, Plantae, Protista and Monera. And the last which we used recently is of R.H. Whittaker. Whittaker was the one who given five kingdom classification systems, and in this classification system he included the group fungi. So, in the classification system of Whittaker, he included Plantae, Animalia, fungi, Protista, Monera. So, these classification systems with certain characteristics. Some of the characteristics which were based on these classifications like cell structure, cell wall compositions, their thallus organizations, their mode of nutrition, mode of reproduction and phylogenetic relationships. Since in the first classification systems which was given by Linnaeus, there were certain things which were not included in his group, many of the scientists were finding very difficult to understand the classification systems. And after that, so many scientists have came and understood that this classification system was not inadequate. So, after that they have included Ernst, then Copeland and Whittaker. In the Whittaker classification system, every doubts have been cleared, but that's not the only one. There were certain scientists who came after Whittaker and studied so many characters and have included in this classification system. In the classification system of R.H. Whittaker, he included some of the structure of the cell, that is whether the cell is prokaryotic or eukaryotic. If it is prokaryotic, that means the organisms will have no nucleus. That means those who have no nucleus, their nuclear membrane is not present, and those organisms have nucleoid. Okay. Next is our eukaryotic, the one which are having nucleus. Along with this nucleus, they are going to have some cell organelles, that is mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum. These are the cell organelles, right? So the next is their thallus organizations. Since we know that thallus, that means the body shape. In the case of algae, we can see that they do not have specific body shape. That is the thallus organizations. Next one is the cell wall compositions. The cell wall compositions in the case of higher plants have cellulose. Fungi have the cell wall chitin. And the next is bacteria, they have peptidoglycan, and some of them have non-cellulosic cell wall compositions. Next one is their mode of reproduction, whether they are asexual or sexual reproduction, and next is their nutrition. The mode of nutrition should be either photosynthetic or heterotrophic. In the case of photosynthetic, which are the autotrophic mode of nutrition, these autotrophic mode of nutrition are of two types, that is photosynthetic and chemosynthesis, so which we will discuss in further topics. Next is, see what we have got here in the classification systems. In the classification system of Linnaeus, he included Chlamydomonas and Spirogyra in the same group, and in fact he included so many things which were separated in the classification system of Whittaker. In the system of classification, the Protista were grouped in the unicellular organisms and the fungi, and after that the Monera. Since these classification systems are changing over a period of time, this causes lots of confusions in the scientific world. And after that, this classification system is changing depending on their knowledge of classifications criteria. Now let us see some of the kingdoms which are included in these classification systems. So the first kingdom was kingdom Monera. This kingdom Monera includes all the different kinds of bacteria. Bacteria are the most primitive forms of organisms. They are unicellular and prokaryotic. Since they are prokaryotic, that means they do not have proper nuclear membrane, and so they are known as naked DNA. Next is their mode of nutrition. The mode of nutrition can be either autotrophic or heterotrophic. If it is autotrophic, it can be either photosynthetic or non-photosynthetic, that means chemosynthetic. Photosynthetic, which means in the presence of sunlight they make their food, whereas the chemosynthesis, they make their food with some inorganic substances. Some of the organisms whose mode of nutrition is chemosynthesis, like for example nitrifying bacteria. This type of bacteria included Nitrosomonas, Nitrococcus. These are the bacteria which are included in this chemosynthetic bacteria. Now the next is their mode of reproduction. Their mode of reproductions can be either asexual reproductions, whether it can be fission also. They divide and form two daughter cells, and likewise they divide their cell. And the next one is their sexual reproduction. These sexual reproductions will be genetic recombinations. So these are some of the characteristics for kingdom Monera. Now see, since we know that this bacteria is a very simple body structure, but they are actually very complex. Based on their cell wall compositions, they are of various types. These bacteria are present in many different habitats also, and they are all present in our surrounding. In fact, inside our body also there are many microorganisms which includes this bacteria. So these bacteria are categorized on the basis of their shape. So the bacteria coccus have the shape spherical and oval shape. This shape of the bacteria, example of such bacteria like Streptococcus and Diplococcus. These are some of the bacteria which give the shape of coccus, that means the oval shape. Next, another one is rod shaped bacteria. This rod shaped bacteria included in the category Bacillus. Some of the bacteria which give rod shapes are Salmonella and Escherichia coli. These are some of the organisms which have the rod shaped bacteria. The next is Vibria. These Vibria have comma shaped bacteria. Example of such bacteria is Vibrio cholera. And the next one is Spiralia, which have the spiral kind of body structure, and the example is Spiralia. So these are the categories of bacteria. These 4 categories are mainly based on their shape. They are present in our different kinds of systems. Even the lactobacillus, which is present in curd, is also a rod-shaped bacteria because we have got in the suffix bacillus. This bacillus means rod-shaped bacteria. So, lactobacillus are having rod-shaped. Now, let us move on to the subdivision of this bacteria. So, the first bacteria is Archaebacteria. They are known as the most primitive form. Now, why they are known as most primitive? Because they were the first one to come in the life before human beings, because they can live in different habitats. Now, why there is a change in this? This is because of their cell wall composition. Their cell wall composed of peptidoglycan, and this peptidoglycan, which means peptides, means protein, and glycan, which means carbohydrates. So, their cell wall is composed of this peptidoglycan, and because of this they can live in harsh habitats. Some of them can live in hot spring, which is called as thermoacidophiles, and some of them can live in salty areas called as halophiles, and some of them live in marshy areas which are called as methanogenic bacteria. So, these are some of the bacteria which are included in this division of bacteria, that is Archaebacteria. In fact, the methanogenic bacteria is present in the gut of some of the cattle like buffalo and cow. Their gut have the presence of this methanogenic bacteria. Because of this methanogenic bacteria, they are used for biogas productions. Since the biogas, that means the biogas is getting from their cow dung. This dung composed of methane gas. So, this methane gas has emitted from the bacteria methanogenic bacteria. So, this is all about the Archaebacteria. Now, let us see another type of bacteria, that is Eubacteria. Eubacteria are the true bacteria. Now, why they are known as the true bacteria? The characteristics of Eubacteria is they have rigid cell wall, and this cell wall are covered by mucilaginous sheaths, and in fact if they are motile they have flagellum, because these flagellums are going to help them in moving, in locomotion. This flagella have 3 parts: basal body, then filament, then hook. This flagellum is going to help in their locomotion process, and they are unicellular and colonial. They are mostly colonial and unicellular type of body organizations. The type is cyanobacteria. Well, cyanobacteria, you can see the name is cyano, then bacteria. Cyano is a type of color which mostly the color of blue and greenish, and it is commonly called as blue-green algae. These algae have similar pigments just like their higher plants. Higher plants have chlorophyll A pigment, and in similar ways this blue-green also having this chlorophyll A. Now, this cyanobacteria also form algal bloom in water bodies. They pollute the water. What is happening here? They are forming so many pollutions in this water. It is because of this cyanobacteria. They are causing algal bloom. Next character is they can fix atmospheric nitrogen in a specialized cell which we call as heterocyst. These kind of specialized cells help in the fixation of atmospheric nitrogens. Because you know atmospheric nitrogen cannot be fixed by the plants, they need some proper specialized cell. Example, in the case of some of the plants like leguminous plants, they have nodules. So, in similar way, these bacteria have a specialized cell called as heterocyst. These heterocysts are going to fix the atmospheric nitrogen. Example of such bacteria is nostoc and anabina. Their mode of reproduction is asexual or sexual reproduction. So, if it is asexual mode of reproduction, it will be formed by fission. That means one cell is getting divided and form 2 cells. Next is their sexual reproduction. This sexual reproduction is occurring because of the genetic recombinations, as I have discussed earlier also. Next is their mode of nutrition. This nutrition, we know that most of the bacteria are heterotrophic. They depend on other organisms for their food. and some of them are autotrophic also, as well as their mode of nutrition. And they are mostly present as parasites. Example of some of the disease which cause bacteria like cholera, even our common cold. This common cold is causing because of bacteria. And so, we have to take antibiotics. This antibiotic is going to degrade the cell wall and we are getting protected from these bacterial diseases. Next division is mycoplasma. Mycoplasma is the smallest bacteria. They can live without oxygen and they completely lack cell wall. Some of the organisms of mycoplasma are called as Pseudonemona-like organisms and Mycoplasma like organisms. So, these are the subdivision of kingdom Monera. So, what we have got in this part? Kingdom Monera included bacteria, and this bacteria is subdivided into archaebacteria which can live in extreme harsh habitat, and the next is eubacteria which we call as true bacteria, and the last one is mycoplasma which is the smallest and can survive without oxygen, and in fact they do not have cell wall.